Okay.
Well, I'm very excited to welcome Pat Longo. Yay! We celebrate. Yay!
I am so happy to be here.
I like to say Pat Longo, known as Long Island Medium's mentor and healer, but I want to say first, Pat Longo, known as Pat Longo.
That's right. That's
right. Because, we become who people see. Mm-hmm. And, that's great and wonderful. And what a wonderful journey you were brought in to bring such a beautiful soul to the world. Mm-hmm. But I want to see your journey today. I want to talk about you, Pat. Okay. Who you are.
It's all about me. It's all about me.
It's all about you, Pat. It's all about you. I do want to know, a little bit about you, and before you actually ran into her and you helped her, or even other mediums, not necessarily her. Who are you, and how what you facilitate helps in any area, whether it be healing, psychic, or mediumship. Okay. I'm very interested because I've heard such beautiful things about you, such as the presence in the room when you're in the room, and how you lift the space up. So I like to begin there, if that's okay.
I will begin at the beginning. When I was probably 35, when I was 25, I went to my first psychic. And I was already a mom of 5 by that point in time, and I was very busy and had very little money. So I went to this psychic, and it started me on a journey of visiting a psychic fair once a year. Because it didn't cost too much money. I could pick 1 or 2 people and go in. And everybody kept calling me a healer. They would see the medical sign. They would think I was a nurse or in the medical field. And I didn't know what they were talking about. I really didn't. I had no clue. So when my mom was about 68, 69, she got diagnosed with inoperable breast and bone cancer. And it had metastasized already. She didn't tell anybody that she had a tumor for over 5 years. And it was discovered really by 2 of my sisters walking into a dressing room to give her some dresses to try on for a wedding. And they realized what was going on. She got very angry because she didn't want anybody to know. And of course, all the bells and whistles went off and the doctor appointments were made, but it was already too late. The metastases had taken place. My mother was not a good candidate for chemo. Her blood counts would drop very quickly. So what happened, we were all in a tizzy. I went to a psychic. I had an appointment with a psychic, and I'd had it for 6 months. When I got there, I walked in, I didn't even get to the chair, and he said to me, "You're worried about a woman above you and a male below you." And I said, "That's correct. My son was having some relationship issues at the time." And he was very angry. So what happened? I gave him some pictures. And he took the pictures and he said to me, he told me every spot that she had the cancer, the skull, the rib cage, the pelvis, the breast, of course. And he said, and I think there's some pinpricks in her liver. And he said, is she opposed to alternative methods of healing? And I said, like what? And he gave me a card and he said, I know this woman. She has some luck with cancer, healing. And I said, she has nothing to lose. So I called the lady up when I got home and I was checking her out, kind of like people check me out now. Making sure she didn't have horns and a tail and was waving dead chickens, So I loved her. I loved her energy over the phone, and I made an appointment for the very next day. And I asked my mom, do you trust me? And she said, yes. I said, well, we're going to go for a ride because it's about 2 hours away. We arrive there. She goes upstairs. The woman puts Oprah on for me. I sit down. I'm watching television. And when it was all over, the woman just came running out to the car. And we opened the window. We were just pulling out. And she said to my mother, do you believe in the Blessed Mother? And my mother said, I pray to her every day. And she said, well, she was there in the room. And she said, I was so honored. I was so overwhelmed that I didn't even tell you. And my mother went into immediate remission. Now, my mother was 69 at that point, and she was 84 when she passed. She had no problems after that. She was taking one pill, I think a chemo pill, I can't remember what, tamoxifen, which is a common pill, for a few years. But my mother she was fine. She was fine. They did bone scans on her, and it would show where the cancer was in the bone, but it would show that it was stagnant. It never moved. Nothing moved. Her breast repaired because it was technically inside out. The nipple was inside and she was bleeding. And that was all, that just all kind of healed right over. So my mom was great. And when she passed, we don't believe it was from cancer. It was because my father passed first. And I think she just went right downhill. She passed about 16 months after him. Now, she used to say to me, well, I got cancer so that you could do this. And when we drove home that day, she looked at me and she said, why not me? Why not me? Because this woman explained to her that something was eating her up inside. So this is the basis of what I do. I look for the hurts and traumas to find out why people get sick. It's what's eating them up inside. You see, that's where the sickness and the cancers develop. So eventually my job became more of a detective. So I research the person when they're in front of me, and I know by my gut whether they're hitting the right reason. I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm going to go back before that to get you up to this point. I jumped ahead. So now, after my mother healed, everything kind of happened really fast. I ended up with a teacher of metaphysics, and it was everything was divinely directed. Everything just landed in my lap, as you know can happen. So I went to the class. In a few weeks, my hands started to get really, really hot. And I didn't understand why. I thought it was menopause. I was in, my mid to late 30s, and I told my husband, my hands feel like hot pokers. I don't know what's the matter with me. I can't cool them off. And the teacher, when I got to class the following week, the teacher asked me to move over on the couch. And this woman who had soft tissue damage from a car accident, it was a rainy Monday morning and she was achy and she kept shifting on the folding chair. And she came over, I moved over, she sat down. And then my teacher, whose name was Holly, she's since deceased, and she said to me, Pat, put your hand on her leg. And I said, what are you talking about? Put my hand on her leg. She said, just put your hand on her leg. Oh, okay. So I put my hand on her thigh, and about 2 minutes, I didn't do anything because I didn't know what I was doing. I just put it there. And 2 minutes later, she was out of pain. And my head started spinning. I don't even know how I got home that day because it was crazy. I didn't know how it happened. I didn't know why it happened. I didn't know why me. I asked a million questions. And the beginning started right there. I began to put my hands on my siblings first. Didn't tell them what I was doing. If they said they had a headache, I'd put my hands and I maybe massage their scalp a little, but then I got the headache. One of them had a stiff neck, and I'm massaging the neck, and then I got the stiff neck. So I said, okay, God, we got a problem here. You need to help me out, because if you want me to do this, I'm happy to do it, but I can't be walking around with everybody's pain. So intuitively, I figured out, again, how to protect and ground and shield myself. And I sort of learned on my own because my teacher was a psychic, not a healer. And there were no healers in the class. I couldn't find any books. I looked in the library, I looked in the bookstores, and I found one book, one little tiny pocket book that helped me understand a little bit more and how my thoughts become things, okay? What I put in my mind and how I work, how I channel the energy, that it wasn't me, that it was coming through me. And I just went purely and strictly on faith because I look at it this way. One day I was a mom and a wife and a daughter and a sibling. And the next day I was a healer. It was an overnight thing. I didn't have a chance to think about it. It happened. And I remember telling my husband once, I didn't ask for this, but I'm not giving it back. So you better get on board. And he did, in the beginning, this is like having a mistress. People don't understand when you open up spiritually that it's like having an affair. You can't get enough. I read books. I swallowed them whole. I just kept reading and reading and reading. I couldn't get enough information. But all that information was being stored in my cell memory for the time when I was ready to teach. So as the story continues, you asked, you're going to get.
Right.
I I started touching people by word of mouth. It just happened. It just began. It took on a life of its own. I was working part-time in an office. I eventually quit that because I felt I couldn't sit behind a computer when I had all of this to do, all this work to do. So I ended up in the tri-state area. So I'm on Long Island. So New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Staten Island. Those were the areas that I was being pulled to. And it was all done by phone calls. People just called me. People heard I did this or did that, and off I went. So now a little time goes by, and I recognize that I could put my hands on somebody, and the energy I channel will help them heal. Tumors would disappear. Things would happen. Amazing things would happen. But then I realized if I didn't find out the core of the illness, they were only just going to go back to that same, say, abusive husband or, toxic relationship or alcoholic parent, whatever it was. And they were just going to go back, and then they were going to end up sick again. So I decided to do one-on-ones, and I began to sit down with people, and I would search it out. And then I would teach them how to let it go, how to forgive, how not to judge, how to balance, how to love themselves. So that's what I began to do. So this went on for a little while. And then I said, okay, it's not enough. Maybe if I have a class and people come, I can help them before they get sick. So before they have to come to me for healing, I could teach them how to balance. And that's what I did. And then one class went on. It went on for quite a few years with people coming and going and coming and going. And then I had such a waiting list that I said to my husband, I said, listen, after the holidays, maybe my kids were now out of the house primarily. I said, after the holidays, maybe we could open up 2 rooms and make a classroom. And by the time the paint was dry, I had 3 classes, not 1, but 3. And each one had a waiting list. And then I had a 4th class. And that one was a briefer class. I only did that for 6 months at a time because my classes are indefinite. People just are allowed to come whenever. I have about 300 plus in the class now, in the physical class, and they come and go. I do it 3 times. I don't advertise it because it's by invitation only. I haven't done what you guys do yet. I haven't done online classes, but they come to a hotel, and I provide a practice venue for them because there's so many people there. I'm able to mix and match like musical chairs, and I just move everybody around, and I teach this. I have them all practice healing. I have them all practice mediumship. We do all sorts of things, and they surprise themselves every month. I only do it once a month now. Once a week. I did that for a long time, but it was 4 classes. So it was 4 classes a week for a very long time, and I had a lot of people come and go. And as far as opening people up, when they came to my healing class, I would meditate them. Now, meditation, we all know, is the key. And I would meditate them, and they would all of a sudden go into these amazing places, and their gifts began to come forward. So now the gifts are coming forward, and my job was to teach them how to expand it. Bring it forward, bring it out, and then teach them how to expand it. Don't ask me how, because I'm not a medium. Okay. I'm told that I am, but so far that's not the way it's worked for me. I'm very content healing and teaching. All right. That I think my job really is to ascend people and to keep opening them and opening them and opening them, and then pushing them out the door so that they can help other people. So again, before you had, put up the site, I said to you, we're an army. We're an army of light workers, and I'm kind of like the general. So I'm pushing people out and out and out and trying to get them there. Now, when Teresa came to me, I'm going to say it was about 2001 or 2. Okay. She was reading 10 years before she went on the air. And what people don't know or recognize or realize is that I knew Teresa's parents before they were married. I knew Teresa's grandparents. So there was a long history. They were friends of my parents. Her
Oh,
grandparents
wow.
were friends with my parents. So her mom was one of my first students. But she's never seen, because she went into Eucharistic minister and grief counseling. That was her choice. But she was in my first class. Teresa didn't come till many years later. And, you know, she was only there for 2 weeks before she opened up. She had no idea what was coming. Whatever night terrors she had at home, my son, my oldest son, is best friends with her brother. They played soccer together from 8 years old on. So they're best men at each other's weddings. I danced at Teresa's wedding, but I didn't really know her. When she knocked on my window one night, on my car window, when I pulled her mother in. Her mother and I bowled together, and I pulled into the driveway, and she knocked on the window and said, "Mrs. Longo, are you still having those classes?" I said, "Yes, Teresa, would you like to come?" And she came, and one of the other mediums in the room looked at her and said, "This is going to happen really fast for you." And she freaked out because she said, "What's going to happen?" You know, because she's very loud, she's always been loud. And she said, "What's going to happen?" And she said this. And 2 weeks later, I just had her turn. I have everybody turn to the next person, and we all practice reading, and things just kept coming out of her mouth and coming out of her mouth and coming out of her mouth. So my job with Teresa was, I call it polishing the gold. Okay. For whatever reason, Spirit gave me the time to really go out with her in groups. She never wanted to do private readings. Like, you know, when you go to let's just say a party at someone's home and you read individual people, you might have to read 9 or 10. I mean, it takes forever and it's so draining. And that was not where she wanted to go. Spirit was pushing her to do groups right away. So we skipped. I think she only did 2 of those one-on-ones, and then we skipped right to open groups. And I went with her for a whole year. Now, that's unheard of. I don't have that kind of time. I don't know where that time came from, but it was provided.
It was aligned.
Exactly. It was provided for me to actually train her. And every time we would go into the house, right before, I would put her in the light. I would do my own meditation. I would say it out loud. I would have her ask her guides for clarity, for speed and accuracy, for messages of healing. And then we would go inside. She'd do a bang up job. We'd come outside and she'd say, "Okay, what did I do wrong?" Because I would always critique her. So each week I gave her something else. I said, "Do it this way," or "Why don't you say it that way?" or how did you get that? Why don't you do it this way? And when she finally I didn't have anything to say anymore. She looked at me, she says, "Well, okay, well, what did I do now?" And I said, "Nothing, absolutely nothing. You don't need me anymore." And I stopped. And that was hard for her because she liked to have company. So, I mean, I know she found a friend or two after that to accompany her to the groups, because she always did have a little panic and anxiety. But her main anxiety left the minute I had her do her first group at a beauty parlor. And she looked at me on the way there, and you'll laugh about this. We were on our way on the highway. It was to a beauty parlor. Do you know who Kim Russo is?
Yes.
Okay, so Kim and I, we were together. We started together. We had the same teacher and all of that. And Kim and I also traveled together, but I just traveled as her friend. She and I were learning at the same time. And Kim had this beauty parlor that she would do every year. And one day she called me up. She says, "Pat, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting too busy. Do you have anybody that could do it for me?" And I said, "Well, I have 2 people in mind." And it was the one girl who told Teresa how fast her gift was going to come, and Teresa, only she had no idea I had this plan for her. So I talked her into it. I didn't talk her into it. I told her she was going to do it. And we got in the car. I'm very bossy. And we got in the car. And she started to panic. So the big fingernails that she always had came out and grabbed me right on the arm. The claws went right in my arm, and I had to pull off the highway. And she was really getting anxious. And we got back on. I talked her around. We get there. And on the way there, she says, don't give me any men. Whatever you do, don't give me any men. And I said, well, what men are going to be in the beauty parlor in the middle of the afternoon? Okay. So we get in there, and don't you know, there were two men. And both men came in at odd times when the other medium had just sat down with a client. So I had to give them to her. And she gave them beautiful readings. And when we went outside, she again put her hand on my arm, but this time without the claws. And she said to me, I feel whole for the first time in my life. And that's when it all integrated. That's when she really recognized that it was spirit that was making her anxious. It wasn't anxiety. It's anxiety, but it's spirit anxiety. So it's an amazing journey. And again, years went by, and as most of you know, when you're reading, you never know who you're reading. You never know who's going to come in. And if somebody comes in and they're from a television show or a radio show or from a magazine or a publisher, they're going to know people. And somehow, some way, if it's supposed to happen, they're going to connect you. And we're going to get off Teresa in a minute. But the thing about Teresa, what's interesting is you either love her or you hate her, okay? You know, she's got this big hair and these big nails and this big personality. That's who she is. That's who she always was. She didn't change anything. She was always loud. I got caught once at one of the groups we were doing. We had to sit in a chair and a half because that's all they had for her and I. And I slipped my fingers very gently up here, and I was sticking my fingers in my ears because she was so loud. I didn't want her to see it, and she caught me. She said, do you have your fingers in your ears? And I said, you're loud. What do you want from me? You're loud. So this is who she is. And you said it first. She was given this job. She was given this job by spirit. She was put with me so that I could get her where she needed to go. And then when she got there, it all turned back to me, because the 34 countries that the television show was in when it aired, I'm in 34 countries now. So they can't reach her, but they can reach me. So I work in that many countries, actually more than that now, because people just find out. And every time a rerun comes on of one of the shows I was on, there's more phone calls. But they're calling me because they're gifted, and they're calling me because they have anxiety. So I used to be able to get rid of anxiety with no problem by doing a healing. I had no idea how big the connection was with spirit until that day at the beauty parlor with Teresa. And then all the people started to call me after the show aired, and it was all connected to anxiety and spirituality. So it became like, to me, it's like an epidemic. It was pieces of a puzzle that I put together, and I was able to cure it. Okay, so anybody out there listening that has anxiety, you need to really, I call it a shiny metal vest that everybody puts on in the morning. Okay?
That's what I was going to ask you. I think because you brought up a good topic there, a lot of my students, Pat, they come to me because I teach mediumship. Mm-hmm. And I love what you said. And I'm gonna give you my view of the healing part of this, because you talked about it, and I even interviewed Paul right before this, Paul Jacobs, and he's a medium for 30 years, and he said the same thing you said. If there is an emotion that is unresolved,
that is correct,
it will persist in your energy, right? And when you're trying to attune to the emotion of spirit, you will, maybe your human trigger for that emotional unresolved issue will push out that attuning to that soul, because 100%. It's triggering some. And I see where your work would definitely take a medium to another level, because you're going, where are the wounds? Where is the emotional frequency that needs to be healed, so that you can free yourself from it? And when spirit's coming in with that emotion to attune to it, mm-hmm. through their presence, you're not pushing it back through that that human trigger from that emotion. So it's so important. That's something that I didn't see it that way. I didn't put it together that way, Pat, for a long time. I think till this year, to be honest with you, where I'm like, oh my God, because I don't know, I just saw it that way, the emotions and how the body reacts to hurtful emotions, and it's on defense, right? But one of the big things too with my students is they've been walking around with the aura wide open because they didn't know they were healers. They didn't know they were psychic or medium. They're drained, they're depleted, they're in a fearful place.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is where all the chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia comes from. This is where the autoimmune disease comes from. The empaths, they get digestive issues and they get autoimmune disease, okay? Now, why? Because they have been pulling in the toxins of other people for their entire lives. Exactly. They were born empaths. It didn't just happen. They were born empaths. And listen, I was an empath and I absorbed people's illness. I was sick all the time as a kid. Even into a young adult, I was sick up until about probably right before I became a healer. I had something called psoriatic arthritis, and it affected every part of the right side of my body, every joint. And I was in terrible pain. God bless you.
Thank you.
I was in terrible pain, and I thought I would be in a wheelchair at 50 because I really had a hard time walking, and I had a hard time even driving in the car with my husband. Was terrible. So, but prior to that, it was, eczema, asthma, psoriasis, hives, migraines, sinusitis, pneumonia. I had more pneumonias. I think I had pneumonia 6 times, and I don't know how many times I had bronchitis. If my siblings got the measles, I got the German measles. You know, if I got scarlet fever, I got scarlet fever and strep throat. Everything I got double. I was allergic to medications. I was, up until this year, actually, still allergic to medications. I was under I was forever saying medications don't like me and I don't like them, but that's not a good thing to say.
Well, we learned that sometimes we hear the things our parents say or our grandparents say, and we say it, right? And then we realize when we learn that our thought becomes the life and the energy around us, that, oh my goodness.
Yeah, so now I say very nice things to my medicine. I do. I say, thank you so much for healing my body and giving me no side effects. That's what I say to my body.
Yeah.
That's what I say to my food too. Thank you so much for letting me enjoy you and not gain weight.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I'm sort of, you know, it's all about, again, thoughts become things. If it's one thing that I say to a client, I probably say it 10 times during a session because I can't get people to really understand how powerful their thoughts are. But then the words become even stronger. And then if you write it down in a manifesting way, it is so powerful. It's like cement. You can't break it. So people have to stay on that positive level, that brainwave, and protect themselves.
Sure. So for the people that we have a couple people that say, well, I know that, you know, I feel very sensitive. And, you know, I feel a lot, but I don't have money to take classes. What can you say to them so that they're not depleted, Pat? And I know you talk about this armor, and I love it. Because I'm
going to give you the 5-second cure. Okay.
Hey.
I brought it down to 5 seconds. Listen, I have a big, beautiful meditation album, and I have this beautiful meditation called Universal White Light and Protection, and it's on YouTube as well. Someone like that should watch my YouTube videos. If they have a computer, obviously, or they wouldn't be watching this. They have a phone. I have like 48 YouTube videos, and they're only about 5 minutes each. And on those videos, it's questions people ask me from all over the world, and I answer like 5 or 6 a session, you know, just trying to give more information. And it talks about grounding, which is super, super important. A lot of you mediums don't ground. You surround and protect yourself, but people don't take the extra step to ground. And without the grounding, there is no balance. Okay? You're always in the ethers. You're not grounded to this earth. And we live on Mother Earth. All right? So the white light that we surround ourselves and fill ourselves with, actually becomes like a force field, and it connects us to spirit and God and the creator or the universe, whatever. The grounding creates the balance. So when we ground and lock ourselves into Mother Earth and connect ourselves to spirit with the light together, yin yang is formed. Okay, balance is formed. The vest of armor that we just slap on in our thoughts, I do this, just slap it on. Okay, and it's a mental thought. Once the thought becomes the thing, you don't need the hands, but it's just it's a fast thing. And so what I do is I tell people, God, surround me in a bubble of your white light and protection, shoot my cords into the earth, lock them in like the roots of a big old tree, and slap on my vest, and I'm done. That's in the morning, because nobody has an excuse not to do it, even if they have to go in the bathroom and pee. Okay. My students, I could tell you who is grounded and I could tell you who is not. And I tell them, all right, raise your hand. Raise your hand. Who's not? And the hands start to go up. And I said, listen, I made it 5 seconds. I don't want to hear any excuses. You have to do this before you interact with other people. Otherwise, you are wide open. And all the people that have all these autoimmune diseases and this fatigue and the draining, the healers that work on people and they get drained, and the mediums that get drained, they're not properly filtering the toxins. Okay. I mean, you have to kick everybody out. When you're a medium and you're doing a group or a reading, you have to send everybody home with the person you just read. They're not allowed to stay in your space. Why wouldn't they stay in your space? Why wouldn't they stay with somebody that could hear them and talk to them? They're all going to hang around. So if you don't kick them to the curb and say, okay, guys, everybody go home, go back where you belong, go with your loved one, or, go back to where you started from, but you can't stay in my space. I had several readers, when they would drive past a cemetery, their car would fill up and they would have to kick them out. I mean, it's almost like you have a beam of light that comes out of the top of your heads, and spirit says, ooh, she can see me, hear me, feel me. I'm going home with her. And you could walk through the mall and pick up all kinds of hitchhikers and go on home. So you have to have protection. You have to have protection.
And again, that goes back to those of us that before we knew that we had the sensitivity to connect with spirit, we're walking around with our auras open. When that happens, they can see us come. They're trying to get our attention. They're trying to come to us because our awareness knows there's a presence. We don't know exactly what it is, but we know that there is, and our physical body is drained. It's like being plugged into an outlet. You go from not being plugged in at all to being plugged into a 120 volt or whatever, shall we say, outlet. You're going to fry out. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to be tired. Everything's going to start to tell you what is going on.
Are you careful? Do you sit with your back against the wall in a restaurant? You should.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. Listen, all I know is mediums. So therefore, every time I go out to lunch,
you got me checking my back.
I'm the only one sitting on the outside with my back exposed. Everybody else has got to have the wall, because it's a very different sensation to have things coming forward at you rather than coming from behind you. When I teach mediums to do a group, I always make sure their back is to the wall. Whenever they go into somebody's house, they're to look at the house and they're to see where the best spot is for them to sit, where they're not by an opening. Okay, not even by a fireplace opening. There should never be an opening behind you. You should always be like that. Eventually, you have to walk around in restaurants and things like that. But as long as your protection's in place and you let your guides know, keep my back covered, they will. Okay, it's all about, again, it's what you ask your guides. Your guides are there for you, and they want to help you to serve. So they're going to help you in any way they can. But if you don't ask them, you don't get. All right. When I teach mediumship, I teach my students, it's Pat Longo 101.
Hey.
Okay. It's basically, you tell your guides, don't show me death. Only show me things that can be prevented, and give me messages of healing. Don't show me death is really important, because if you think about it this way, the other side is home. So your guides don't think twice about showing death, but we're empaths. We live here in this physical world. Why would we want to know that our next door neighbor's child was going to get hit and killed by a car?
I cannot.
Yes. Why would we want to know our cousin's wife isn't going to wake up? Okay. We don't need to know about 9/11 and Sandy Hook unless we can do something about it. So when we ask for only messages that can be prevented, you will not get those horrible things. There is no reason.
That's a good point, because a lot of students feel that they don't have a choice. I'm going to see it.
Yes,
I'm always going to get it that way. Oh my God, I don't want to live like this. But and it's not their fault. It's just the lack of understanding that your intent is everything. And if you intend with your guides, I want to do this work, but in my bottom line, I tell my students something like bottom line intention. Make a bottom line intention. When you're working with spirit, what is your bottom line?
Absolutely.
Bottom line, these are the things that I prefer not to receive. And you don't want to be specific and limit the spirit world either, because you know, they are who they are. But those type of things are important. Don't show me death unless I can do something about it. I love that.
We do a caution sign, a privacy sign, so that people don't cross a line in public that they shouldn't cross. So for instance, you're out to lunch with your friends, and you know, you got several women there, and all of a sudden somebody's father comes through and they want to apologize for molesting that person. That's not something you want to do when you're out to lunch, especially if you have a glass of wine in you. Okay. Again, it's very important to always close down when you're going to go out and when you're going to have any kind of alcoholic substance at all. The same thing goes with painkillers, because when you alter your mental chemistry and your physical chemistry, it's like leaving your front door open in a really bad neighborhood. You are open to psychic attack at all times. So therefore, you close that down before you go out and party. Otherwise, you get in trouble. And I've had many people get in trouble. And I said, I told you. You know, my young students would say, what do you mean I can't drink? I said, I did not say you couldn't drink. I said, you cannot read when you drink. Okay, because it's a mistake. You're asking for trouble. It may not get you once, but it will get you the next time.
And that's because you're not as conscious to be in that power and that higher place. So you attract at the level of your frequency. Yep.
You've altered your chemistry. So think about it. Do you want to read a room full of drunks?
Listen, no. I'm going to tell you what is so funny, because in my flyer, when people ask me about my groups, you know what I have on there?
No alcohol.
Girl, I said, I asked that if those that are getting readings, I asked that if they will be drinking that evening, that they wait until after their reading.
Correct. Those are my rules.
Pat, I could feel it too. Even though I wasn't drinking, I felt their energy away when they were sitting there. I was like, whoa.
They don't get the best reading because their energy is all over the place, which makes you all over the place. So it doesn't work. It's not smart. I'll tell them, if you have to have a drink, you limit it to one, but no alcohol during the time of reading. I've seen people do it. It's terrible. And they don't get what they came there for. And then they've got something to complain about, but they created
those. Oh my God, you're so funny. That's how that came about for me. I had someone that I was reading, and she was drinking, and she was the last reading, and then she was like, I didn't get anything out of it. Before, when she even sat down, she put her head down and started crying. I didn't even say a word, and I said, I can't take your money. You're not gonna benefit from the reading. I'm not gonna be unfair with you. Well, sometimes that doesn't sit well with people, but you have to have integrity. But you're not going to get it. You're not even, really taking in. So it's really worked out for me. And those that are listening, really state that if you're doing readings, it's not only you drinking, but also your recipient. You want to be able to tell them, refrain from drinking if you're doing individual readings, or keep it to a minimum. One little glass, for them, one little glass. But if you're belligerent,
it throws your energy off, and you can't read them as well. And the minute they find out they're not going to get a good reading, usually they'll listen. Okay.
I've never had a problem with that at all. Yeah.
Well, you guys are young, but years ago, everybody smoked in the house. And I would go with Kim to a group, and there'd be 12 women in a house. Everybody was smoking. First of all, I am highly allergic, and she hated it, but she was locked up in a room somewhere, and I was sitting out there with all the people that were smoking.
Oh no.
God. So smoking, I started to say, nobody's allowed to smoke. If you got to smoke, go outside. But these, you can't make everybody do what you want. All you can do is suggest, and my best suggestion is that it will alter your reading. You will not get what it is that you like. If you tell the people you're not going to get the best reading if you drink, then they're gonna withstand, they're gonna hold off from it. Okay. I wanted to say something else. I said about the privacy sign. I want to finish that because oftentimes as mediums and readers, you guys very often give away the sex of babies, give away in showers, engagements, things like that. Those are just as private, okay? Those ruin surprises. So when you put a privacy sign up, and that privacy sign could be a white-handed glove like a police officer, a stop sign, a yellow tape, a caution sign. It doesn't, even just private, a privacy sign, or shh, like this. If you install that with your guides, you're going to have that privacy or that feeling come up that says, wait, don't talk about this now. Okay. And if it's something, let's just say a message like an abusive situation, or maybe somebody had a termination of a pregnancy and their boyfriend didn't know about it, those are things you can talk about privately. You can take that person aside and say, listen, I didn't want to say it out loud, but this is what was coming through for you. Okay, so privacy is important. And again, people don't think about that. They're shooting things out of their head and out of their mouth as it comes forward. The more you ask your guides, the more they will give you. And I'm going to tell you another thing that you wouldn't know. I know you had different teachers, people that I do know as well, but everybody teaches differently. And years ago, back when Kim first started, so that's over 20 years ago, she called me up one day and she was doing like her first big read, and it went on for 3 hours. And she called me up and says, how am I ever going to get anything done? And I said, well, and it just popped into my head. I said, Earth time, 1 hour. Just tell you guys, Earth time, 1 hour. The next day, it was like clockwork. Then I had another girl who did automatic writing, and she was writing and writing and writing, and she worked in corporate America. And they just kept talking to her all day. And she called me up, and it was my daughter's friend. And she said, Mrs. Longo, how am I going to stop this? She said, I can't get any work done. I said, you tell them 9 to 5 Earth time. They wrote right back to her and said, we will respect your request unless it's an emergency. So everybody out there listening has to recognize that your guides are there for you. And if you set certain boundaries, that's what you're going to get. Make your parameters. Okay, when you want to stop a reading, when you go over and you're doing a group and you should only be reading for 2 hours, you tell your guide, 2 hours Earth time, start pulling everybody back. It works. I've
never done that one. I've never thought of that one.
Mm-hmm. I do it all the time.
This is what I do that, Pat. I like that.
What I teach my students, and it works. I mean, literally the next day. So there's so many different things. Half of them I don't even remember. They come out of me sporadically. Let's see.
So let me ask you this, and this because I believe that when we, or in my experience, or how it works, but again, it could be intention as well, right? Because we're intending, this is my time and that's it. Mm-hmm. I believe when we bring our awareness to the spirit world, that's when the spirit world has a platform to step on to, and for us to see, to feel, to hear, and to know they're there. So that discipline is important, because if we are seeing them, hearing them, or feeling them, it's because in some way, maybe unconsciously, we've gone there. We're aware, our awareness is there.
Exactly.
Because they wouldn't be there if we didn't give them that platform.
I give a room. I have my students create a waiting room on the other side, on the second level. And it's, I had a beautiful classroom before I moved from my house. And my husband and I had built bench seats all around the room, and it was a big oblong room, and it was nice and comfortable and pretty. And so a lot of people that came to my classes were able to envision that room. But any waiting room, a doctor's office, any waiting room that you're familiar with, you imagine that on the other side, and all the people have to come into that space. You have a master of ceremonies, which is usually your guide, your gatekeeper, or the strongest energy there. And then what they keep doing is they keep it organized. You tell them this, you give this direction, keep it organized. All right. Have people come in one at a time. Make sure the messages are clear. All right. And accurate. And listen, I'm training some people this week on doing big groups. So I have somebody coming from out of state because she's got a group of 100 coming up, and she hasn't read that many people yet. So I said, you're going to come to my class and you're going to stand in front of a whole room of people, and we're going to teach you how to get there. So what I came up with was asking your guides to almost like shine a spotlight on where you have to go in that room of, let's just say, 50 people. So there's all different things you can put out. You just have to use your imagination. But first I teach them how to feel which side of the room they're on. Okay. And being able to be pulled to that direction. And then you want to get it in closer. You want to get it in between two people so that you know exactly where you are, or approximately where you are. But again, it's all done by setting it up with your guides.
Bottom line. What's your
that intention, your bottom line. Set it up. Be clear on what it is that you desire. Okay. And
that's brilliant.
I mean,
it's brilliant. So you say the armor. I really like that. I never did that. Like when I did that, I felt. Whew.
Well, know that the armor is a filter. Okay. The armor does not block you from intuiting. The armor is a complete filter, and it keeps the toxins away. And the toxins that you've already accumulated begin to pass away. They begin to leave and rescind back from your body. Listen, I've seen people. I have a client. Well, she was a client, then a student, then a friend, and she's now a medium, a healer, an angel card reader. But when she came to me, she had 16 years of chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. She had points at which she crawled on the floor. She would have to put her hands in her pockets to hold her body up straight when she walked. She couldn't work. She didn't have children as a result. She started it at 23, and at 39, she came to me. And in 1 hour after she left me, it was all gone. And I knew when she walked in my door that she was a healer. I felt her vibration compatible to my own. And she didn't even know what a healer was. She never heard of it, but I knew who she was. And an hour later, it was all gone. Now she has 3 jobs, and she's very happy. She works at my fairs. She does all sorts of things. And I send people to her all the time because she has the purest, most beautiful energy. So again, I see this stuff as a healer, and I know energy. And I know empaths when they walk in. And it's not that everybody's not empathetic. We all have the ability to be, but we don't all use it. Okay? Sure. We don't all use it.
Are you able to do like remote healing?
Oh,
like
yes. Oh, I've been doing that since before there were computers. I did everybody over the phone years ago in all different countries. But, and again, I was doing countries before Teresa came along. They just expanded. But sometimes if I didn't, I'd say, oh, could you send me a picture? And I'd work off a picture. And then I'd say, well, you know what? I don't have a picture. So let me just write their name on a piece of paper. And I would put my hands over the paper. And then I said, I don't need a piece of paper. I just need my thoughts. So I learned as I went too. I cut my healings down from a half an hour to 15 minutes to 5 minutes because it's not me. Mm-hmm. Not me. So. Okay. I'm the mouthpiece. I'm the teacher. I'm the one that teaches them. I find where their problems are. I teach them how to heal their problems, how to get in balance, how to honor themselves. Okay, the biggest thing all of you could understand is you must honor yourself. And when you honor yourself and aren't the one that's doing for everybody and everything, and you begin to focus a little bit more on yourself, not selfishly, but honor yourself, and then your gifts will open wide. Okay, but it has a lot to do with that. Listen, it's all about balance. Okay, it's all about balance. And if you want to be a really good medium and a really good healer or psychic or astrologer or numerologist, balance yourself first. Okay.
That makes total sense. Now I know that you mentioned a couple of things that I really would be interested in you, maybe perhaps, teaching something online to my platform, as well as coming to Chicago. I know we talked about you coming to Chicago. But I know that you're busy this year. But I would love to get a date down for 2019 where you could come and do a group, Pat, and really bring just a couple of things. You said like shielding, grounding, doing groups. I noticed that you use the caution sign. So I know that Teresa uses symbols. So maybe touching on a little bit of symbolism. I think that would be so brilliant for the students. So maybe we can connect you and I and set a solid date for 2019 for you to come. I know that, I don't want it to conflict with anything else that you're doing. So we'll make it in a time that is different from the times that you'll be here working with.
Well, I'm due there in November. I know it's a particular weekend. They're doing a big event of some kind. I don't even know what it's about, but I know I'm a part of it. And I loved it when I came last month. So I had no problem saying I'll be back. And I'd love to come in the nice weather.
Sure. Let's do it. Let's do it. Come on, Pat. Tell me the month. I'm going to try to come out and see you in November. Okay. And then tell me the month in 2019. Do you want to come in June? Whatever month is fine. Listen. And then we'll get a space, and maybe you can do do you do like a 2-day, like if I wanted to cover those areas, like grounding, shielding, doing groups, and symbolism and healing.
Well, I cover a whole bunch. I wear a lot of hats. Okay. So one is a healing hat, of course. So I either teach healing, I teach people how to heal, or I do healing on people. I usually do healing at most events anyway. I do manifesting. I've been teaching manifesting for years, and how to open up and how to draw to you what it is you truly desire. I do anxiety to mediumship. You're Not Sick, You're Psychic, which is the name of my book. Yeah, that's the name of my book. It'll be coming out next year. And let's see, what else do I do? And of course, mediumship. So it all ties in together, the anxiety and the mediumship. You're Not Sick, You're Psychic. I labeled that the title because all I see is people with anxiety and autoimmune disease. So I tell them, listen, you're not sick, you're psychic. So I said it so many times. I said, you know what? That'd be a great title. So
I love it. As soon as your book,
I do too. I'm hoping that the psychic word doesn't keep people away from it. But I think by the time I'm finished, I feel like the book is going to have divine energy connected to it, and it's just going to push out where it has to go. And so I don't worry about it. So I think maybe even the spring would be nice. As soon as the weather, like today, we have 70 something degrees today after having 40s for months and months. It's beautiful here today. Oh man,
it just gets you in such a great mood.
So I was out in the sun before. I think I got a little sunburn on my nose. I sat out up on the deck with the dog and had my lunch, waiting to meet up with you. And it felt so good. It was so nice.
I love it. Would you be willing to do like maybe a 3-hour workshop online?
Online? Probably.
I could set up the Zoom. All you would have to do is come right on in the way you did right now. I'll provide you the recording. I'll do everything. All you have to do is come and teach.
Well, that's what I do best.
Okay, then we got a deal. Because yes. I want to be fair. I have following online, and I do want to bring you to Chicago, but I have so many people from everywhere that I'm pretty sure would love to be able to participate. And maybe we can do a 3-hour workshop or webinar online. Again, I'll set it all up so we can talk outside of this this recording.
Listen,
And if you have
I
time
can
to,
talk forever, Lillian.
I love you. So can I, girl. So that it's great. It's wonderful.
I never run out of things to say.
Oh, it's so, I could hear you all day though. That's the thing. I could hear you all day.
Thank you.
So
I get a lot of that.
I love it. I love it. So we'll definitely talk about that. So everyone be looking out for that. If you can do it this year, that would be brilliant. And since it's online, all I would need is 3 hours of your time.
Don't have to worry about the weather.
You got it. That's it. Well, no, but come back. I want you to come to Chicago in 2019. So we'll definitely set a time for that as well. Okay, because I would love to have you. We'll go eat. We'll enjoy ourselves. I know you have the other people that you interact with. Maybe we can mingle together. But I would love.
When I'm with you, I'm yours. That's the way it works.
Are you sure you're ready for this crazy? Yeah, you can handle me.
Listen, I'm ready for anything. And
if you handle Teresa, you can handle me.
I can handle anything after that. Anything at all. I have a few like that now, and I'm like, okay. The girl that helps me with the technology, she never shuts down. She's so gifted, and she doesn't know how to stop. She whatever she does, she can see everybody's everything, no matter where she goes. And so she just says, just put your hands on my ears. She said, as long as you can put your hands on my ears, because whatever it is, when I do that to her, she completely grounds out. So
I'm so excited to work with you.
On my ears, I'm good. So
I'm excited to work with you. Everybody that's logged on right now, be looking out for the webinar. We'll work on a date. We'll get it going. It will be on Zoom. And I'm excited. I'm pretty sure they're super excited to be able to work with you just this time with you today. I feel warm inside. My hands got really hot at one point too. I'm like, what is happening?
You're getting that healing energy vibe. That's
girl. I was like, oh my.
It's all good. But I thank you so much. It was a pleasure. It really was. I've seen your name so many times. I'm like, okay, this is perfect. When you reached out, I was really excited.
I didn't want to intrude or be like, you know, who's this girl? But, you know, you're just so bright and so brilliant. And I hear beautiful things about your healing. And like I said, I love to bring anybody I can to my platform in person, my platform, you know, online, because the universe is just doing great things for us all right now. Like you said, this is we, not I, and we're beaming light to the world, and the world really needs it. So the more of us that can support each other, love each other, be there for each other, lift us up and rise up, the better that we'll be, you know?
That army of light workers.
Absolutely.
And the more the merrier.
Oh, well, thank you, Pat, so much. This video will be on YouTube, so if you guys want to check it out, you can go on my YouTube channel, and I can provide it to you as well, Pat, so if you want to upload it in YouTube channel. And I'll connect with you now and message you so we can get going on a date.
Okay, that's perfect. And if you want to email me, anybody out there, it's patlongo1111@gmail.com.
Yes, and do you have anything else going besides Chicago in November? Like if people want to do a one-on-one with you, do you offer that? I'm sorry.
I offer the one-on-ones through the email. I'm going to be taking some time off soon, well-deserved time. So the quicker somebody emails, the quicker it'll get done. Otherwise, it's going to be a while, because I'm in the process of looking for a center and building a center here on the island. So there's a lot of stuff between that and my book and whatever travel that I'm called to do. I'm all for it, and I'm all about it. So sharing is my favorite thing to do.
I'm so very humbled. You don't understand. Like, you know, I would watch Teresa, and my hairs would stand, and I would cry, and my kids were like, Mom, why are you crying? It was even before she would deliver a message, you know, and it was my soul saying, look at Lillian, you know, look at Lillian, look at, and what you've done, I'm sure with so many more people, not just her, with your soul. It's amazing. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. And I want to nourish that. I want to bring it to whomever I can, because, you know, it's very hard to find those of us that are brave enough to say, hey,
and willing to share.
It's hard. I'm going to be real honest. It's hard. People won't embrace you. Maybe I would have messaged you. I wasn't sure. Were you going to contact me back? Were you not, Pat? You know, I didn't know. But I'm so excited. And I know the universe is really bringing a lot of people my way, because I will own it. I'm humble. There's no ego with me. I don't.
You have to be. In this business, there's so much ego, and it's very sad, because if everybody would just recognize it's not us, it's coming from above. All we are is the vehicle. That's all we are. We're the vehicle, and we have to keep ourselves as humbled as we can, and as pure as we can, and as light as we can, so that we do attract those large groups of people. Okay. Those of you that are out there and your ego gets the better of you, or becomes so large, and you think you're going to be the next Teresa or the next John Edwards or the next this, don't do it, because if it's in the cards and it's written, it will take place. You have to be humble. Okay, you have to be humble, and remember about loving and honoring yourselves. That's super important. If I didn't do that and pull away from all the crazy things I was involved in when I was a young mother, literally the PTA, the Civic Association, the Cub Scouts, I was the dead mother, I was teaching religion, I was the soccer mom, I was driving all the kids in the neighborhood here and there. I forgot who I was. I didn't even know who I was. I was nowhere to be found. I was everybody else's everything. And then I quit everything. And I started a tap dance class and a bowling league, which is where I was bowling with Teresa's mother. That's when I honored myself, and that's when my gifts opened. So honor yourself first.
Absolutely. And thank you for the honor of having you on today. I really appreciate you. Look forward to offering the webinar and allowing you to touch more souls than what the universe has already brought to you because of your soul and your light. Thank you so much, Pat.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.